Welcome to Sound Bites, hosted by registered dietitian nutritionist Melissa Joy Dobbins. Let's delve into the science, the psychology, and the strategies behind good food and nutrition.
Hello and welcome back to the Sound Bites podcast. Today's episode is about sports nutrition, but not just for athletes, for anyone who wants to improve their performance and get the most out of their fitness or exercise endeavors, and basically how to win with good nutrition. My guest today is Nancy Clark. She is a certified specialist in sports dietetics and has a successful private practice in the Boston area. She has many years of experience helping active clients from ordinary mortals to Olympians, helping them win with good nutrition. Her best-selling Nancy Clark Sports Nutrition Guidebook is a trusted resource for reliable sports nutrition information. Welcome to the show, Nancy.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is a delight to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on the show. You know, your sports nutrition book, I believe it's in the 6th edition now, right?
Oh, it is. Who would have thought?
I know. It's been very, very successful. I have to tell you, I have your book. I have the 2nd edition from 1997.
Well, times have changed a few things.
I know. I need to get the new one. But it dawned on me after we connected about having you on the podcast. I opened my closet in my office and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I still have it on the shelf. You know, and I've culled out a lot of books over the years, but I've held on to that one. So I need to get your new one. But I'm so excited to have you on the show. I have known about you and your work for decades, and I haven't really talked a lot about sports nutrition on the podcast. I mean, certainly fitness and exercise and nutrition comes up frequently, but I'm really excited to really just focus an episode on all things fitness and nutrition. So before we jump into some of the questions that I have for you, I would love for you to share more about your background and your history, how you got to where you are today and being a dietitian in sports nutrition.
Be glad to share that. I'd say my initial interest was in cooking. I went away to a boarding school where the students, worked in the kitchen and did a lot of the cooking for the dormitory. And I was just fascinated by, making mashed potatoes for like 200 people. So then I went to college in Boston at Simmons, which is now Simmons University. At that time, it was Simmons College. And I wanted to do more than just cook, so I went into the nutrition program and totally enjoyed that. I did an internship in dietetics at Mass General Hospital, worked for a bit. And when I was working, I was doing a lot of hiking and biking and cross-country skiing and just really an active outdoor lifestyle. And I needed to know more about how nutrition and exercise connected. I also had a job where I was giving workshops to coaches. And it's like, I need to know more exercise physiology. So I went back to grad school at Boston University, where I combined nutrition with exercise at a time when sports nutrition wasn't even really on the map. And I became a sports nutritionist and worked at a sports medicine clinic. And when I first started out, this is like back in 1980, people say, like, what do you do? Like, what does a sports nutritionist do? Like, cook pasta? And or people would joke and they'd say, oh, I'm really into sports nutrition. I'm into vitamin M2, which is M&Ms. or, I'm into vitamin C3, chocolate chip cookies. And times have changed. So now people recognize that nutrition is the missing link. And performance starts with fueling, not with training. So there's been a big shift over the past 40 years that I've been in the sports nutrition field, and I'm just really pleased to see how integrated it now has become into people's training programs. And you don't even have to be an athlete, but just exercise programs. People are realizing that they need to fuel up and refuel afterwards instead of, oh, I'm too busy to eat, So times have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I went to kind of a boarding school. It was a performing arts high school for ballet. And I'll tell you what, there was a huge disconnect. This is back in the mid 80s. There was a huge disconnect between nutrition and fueling our performance. I mean, as you can imagine with ballet, it was a lot of, restriction and how you can get away with as little as possible and still, dance 8 hours a day. So after that, I ended up going to college and studying chemistry. I still wasn't kind of connecting the dots with nutrition, and I've said this on the podcast before, a couple semesters into chemistry, and I was like, oh, geez, like this is so abstract and boring. I want to help people. And that's how I got interested in nutrition, and then it all kind of fit together. But as you said, things have really evolved and changed over the decades, and you've seen so much throughout your career. Maybe a good first place to start is maybe some common questions or myths that you hear that you want to dispel. Or maybe it's better to start with you talk about this physiology of hunger. Which do you think would be best to start?
Well, let's just sort of start with a basic change that has happened, and people are now recognizing that food is fuel. But we live in this diet culture where food is fattening, and so many people that exercise see food as fattening. And it's like, no, food is fuel. You have a car, you put gas in it, it goes. You have a body, you put food in it, it goes a lot better. So for people in the audience who are listening, I would suspect that many of them are weight conscious, as is most people that live in our diet culture today. And one of the biggest things that I do is to try to get people to realize that they're supposed to eat. I mean, it sounds pretty stupid. But yeah, food is fuel. You're supposed to eat, and you're either fueling up or refueling. And I'd say that my average client is wanting to lose 5-10 pounds. And they get up in the morning and they diet at breakfast. They diet at lunch. They have very little energy to get to the gym in the afternoon. And then they blow it at night. And so they've stayed away from fattening fuel all day and had no energy to really enjoy their exercise. And then they just blow it at night because they've gotten too hungry. So I spend a lot of time with my clients talking about the power of hunger. And as humans, we get hungry. The more you exercise, the hungrier you get, and the more you will want to eat. And that you'll never win the war against hunger. So that hunger is physiological. People eat, pee, breathe, sleep. When it's 10 in the morning and you got to pee, you say, oh, I can't pee till noontime. But if it's 10 in the morning and you're hungry, you go, oh man, how many more hours to lunch? So educating people about hunger, I think, is important. Think of it this way. If I were to stick your head underwater and keep it there too long, when you popped up, could you breathe normally?
No.
No.
Gasping for air.
Gasping for air. What if you skip breakfast because you're on it trying to lose weight and you don't have much lunch? Oh, no time for lunch, or you just have a lettuce leaf for lunch. When somebody brings a few cookies into your eyesight, can you just walk by them? No way. You'll not only eat one cookie, you'll eat the whole thing. And then people say, oh, I'm addicted to sugar. It's like, no. When people get too hungry, they tend to crave sweets and they want quick energy. They also want concentrated calories, fats. So something like cookies, ice cream, sugar, concentrated calories, energy, and physiologically, you want to eat the whole thing because that's just the physiology of hunger. Athletes and people who exercise get hungry. And the best thing that they can do is to see food as fuel, to know that they're supposed to eat, and eat according to the circadian rhythms, which means during the daylight hours. So even if you do want to lose weight, which is a reason why a lot of people exercise, to burn off calories, you want to eat breakfast, eat lunch. I even encourage people to change that word snack to second lunch. So you eat during the day. The purpose of the second lunch is to ruin your appetite. So then at nighttime, you're not as hungry. And you eat dinner, but you don't have dinner and then snack afterwards. Cookies, brownies, ice cream, chips, whatever. So once my clients sort of get it, that hunger is physiological, getting too hungry is really abusive, then they start experimenting with, well, maybe I'll try having a bigger breakfast. Maybe I'll try having a bigger lunch. Maybe I'll trade my salad in for like a sandwich, or have a sandwich and a side salad, instead of just continually munching on little bits and things in the afternoon. They have a half a lunch or a second lunch.
Something substantial.
Something substantial. English muffin with peanut butter. I mean, I have 2 lunches. Lunch 1, peanut butter sandwich. Lunch 2, peanut butter sandwich. I mean, I think that peanut butter is one of the best diet foods around because it's very satiating. It stays with you. It's healthy and it's yummy. Mm-hmm. So I believe in yummy foods eaten during the day that are satiating, prevent hunger, and then you have the energy to enjoy working out. Mm-hmm. And that's what the goal is.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned circadian rhythms, and we actually talked about this on a recent episode about menopause with Liz Ward and Hillary Wright, and they explained some of the science behind that. So it's interesting to hear you bring that up again. You kind of talk about fueling by day, but not like fueling up at night, eating a smaller dinner, sort of like, like you said, a bigger breakfast, bigger lunch, smaller dinner, flipping that because most people have it the opposite. And that way you're not fueling up before you go to bed, where you're just sleeping and that food isn't really fueling anything but your sleep.
Correct. And it's not a sacrifice because if you've had breakfast, first lunch, second lunch, at nighttime, if you listen to your body, you just don't want a huge meal. But if you like that, a lot of people say, but I enjoy relaxing with this great big dinner. Well, have a great big bowl of soup or a great big salad, you still eat, but it's not the double portions. It's not the, stuffing cheese and crackers into your mouth before dinner and then, still munching the rest of the night. So it's just trading the snacks that you end up eating at night into more food during the day. And it just really does wonders for boosting your energy. And if you're going to enjoy exercise, you need to have the energy to do it.
Yeah, people complain of feeling lethargic and not having the energy to exercise, let alone, get through their workday and all of the activities that they have. And so this typical eating pattern of eating a bigger meal at night and then those snacks, it makes perfect sense that if you flip that, it's going to fuel you. And a lot of the snacks that we would have at night maybe aren't very nutrient rich. And when you focus on including bigger meals or snacks earlier in the day, you can really focus on getting more nutrient rich snacks. So I know that food is fuel, and we're going to talk about, carbs and are they fattening, the fear of carbs and all of that tying in with weight. But I'd like to hear more about what kind of fuel are we putting in the car, in the body, to fuel our exercise.
Okay, so you're either fueling up or refueling. So say if you work out in the morning, maybe you have a banana before you work out to fuel up. And then after you work out, maybe you have English muffin and peanut butter and a yogurt. I see eating as a timeline with 4 food buckets. So you've got a breakfast bucket, a lunch bucket, a second lunch bucket, and a dinner bucket. So say on my schedule, I generally have breakfast around 7, then lunch around 11. And if you eat lunch at 11, then what do you do the rest of the day till dinner? You have second lunch at 3, and then dinner at 6 or 7. So in each bucket, you need some sort of protein to build and repair your muscles. You need some sort of grain to fuel your muscles, some sort of fruit and or vegetable for vitamins and minerals, and some sort of calcium-rich food, such as milk or yogurt or soy milk, for your bones. It also helps to keep blood pressure down. So say you're working out in the morning. If you fuel up with a banana before you work out and then come back and have English muffin, peanut butter, and a yogurt, you've had 4 out of the 4 kinds of foods. Mm-hmm. You have a balanced meal, but you've fueled up and refueled. The protein builds and repairs muscles. The carbohydrate refuels muscles. Mm. And what I'm finding these days is that a lot of people are eating way too much protein because they think that carbs are fattening. Mm. And so they might have a protein bar before they work out and a protein shake after they work out. And the body can use just so much protein. Really, it's exercise that builds muscles. And to fuel that weightlifting, to fuel that strength training, you need to have some sort of grain, fruit, vegetables. Those are carbohydrate foods. So oatmeal, your whole wheat toast, like you say, your banana or fruit smoothie. Those are all carbohydrate foods that fuel your muscles so that, again, your muscles don't feel tired and lethargic. And when people eat too much protein, so say they have a protein bar and then they come back and have a cheese omelet, that extra protein doesn't build extra muscle. It's the weightlifting that builds the muscle. And in order to have the energy to lift the weights, that's where you need the oatmeal and the fruit and the grains.
The carbs, yeah. So when you mentioned exercising in the morning and I don't know how much it depends on what time of day you're exercising, but clearly you need to fuel up beforehand. It reminds me of one of the common myths, or maybe it's better to say sort of a popular trend I've heard, is this fasting cardio. So can you kind of walk us through what's the deal with fasting cardio? What is it and does it work?
Fasting cardio, would you get up in the morning and you just eat? You wouldn't eat. You'd exercise on empty. Mm-hmm. And the theory is, if you exercise without eating, you burn more fat. And people then think, if I burn more fat, that means I'm losing body fat. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't quite work that way. Fat loss really depends on, have you created a calorie deficit by the end of the day? So I could exercise, do fasted cardio in the morning or whenever you do it, and afterwards be ravenous mm-hmm. and eat the whole thing. And so I could go do fasted cardio and burn off, say, 300 calories in half an hour, and then come back and eat 400, 500 calories of a big cheese Danish. So if fasted cardio leaves you feeling hungry, and then you get too hungry, and when you're too hungry, you eat the wrong foods, it's not really helping contribute to fat loss. Mm-hmm. So I would rather have you eat during the day, fuel up, refuel. You don't try to lose weight at breakfast. You don't try to lose weight at lunch, or you don't try to lose weight in the afternoon. The time when you lose weight is at nighttime when you're sleeping. And the goal is to wake up hungry for breakfast, so that if you wake up ready for breakfast, then you go, aha, I lost weight last night when I was sleeping. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to try to lose weight when you're exercising. The E in exercise is for enjoyment. And when people exercise hungry, it's really not as much fun as when you've got some gas in your tank. Mm-hmm. And exercise is something that needs to be done for the rest of your life. So you'd better find a way to enjoy exercise and not just see it as punishment for having excess body fat. Oh, I got to go to the gym because I'm fat. Doesn't work that way.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. It took me a while to figure that one out. And, I've heard that phrase, like, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. And, to your point, you could be doing some really intense cardio, even strength training, whatever, and burn a moderate amount of calories, but it's really easy to eat more than a moderate amount of calories afterwards, especially if you're excessively hungry. And even if it's good, healthy, nutrient rich, it's so easy to have that calorie intake versus output out of balance.
Yeah, even healthy calories are calories.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I have people come to me and they're saying, I'm doing all this exercise, I eat clean, and I'm not pencil thin by now. What's wrong with my body? What am I doing wrong? They're eating plenty of clean foods, which is good. But sometimes, people just have distorted body image and they think that they have fat to lose when they really don't. So a large part of my sports nutrition practice is helping people find peace with their bodies and recognizing that very few people are designed to be pencil thin, even though diet culture might not tell you that same message. So people do come in different sizes and shapes. And, the way that a lot of my clients sort of get it is by talking about the dog kingdom. In the dog kingdom, there are St. Bernards, and they're greyhounds, and they're Labradors and poodles and Chihuahuas and beagles. Now, is that St. Bernard fat? No, it's a St. Bernard. If you take that St. Bernard and diet it down to a greyhound, does it become a greyhound? No, it's a miserable St. Bernard. And just think of the number of people that you see at the gym that are St. Bernards that are trying to make themselves into greyhounds.
Mm-hmm.
And they can get their weight down, but that doesn't mean that that's an appropriate weight for their body. And then they, stop dieting and boom, regain the weight again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of frustration among exercisers regarding weight. And I'm doing all this exercise. Why am I losing weight? Because there's a genetic component, and there's a calorie component. Exercise is better known for maintaining lost weight than for contributing to weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
To lose weight, you really want to look at your food intake and just, if you do have excess fat to lose, just chip away a little bit at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But don't think that fasted cardio or exercising on empty is the key to success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked on the podcast before about how what you eat is more of a driver of your weight loss, and exercise is more the driver of keeping that weight off. So thank you for addressing that. And you brought up, different body types. And I always love the dog analogy because it's like, oh yeah, if I'm a St. Bernard, I cannot be a Chihuahua no matter what I do. So it sounds like you work with your clients a lot on making peace with their bodies, making peace with food, and kind of taking a step back and figuring out, okay, what's my body type? What can I do to be the best me? And not only does diet come into play with that, but let's talk a little bit about how different types of exercise are better fits for different types of people. My body responds really well to strength training. But when I took a break from that and started running as a midlife experiment, and that turned into, I did like 7 5Ks one summer in my mid-40s, and then that led to some 10Ks, and I even did a 15K. And everybody's like, oh, now you could do a half marathon. And I'm like, no, I think that's enough running for me. And then my feet were really kind of saying, I think you've had enough between the ballet and the running. Like, you're not doing well here.
Yeah.
So then I got interested in doing a triathlon, a sprint triathlon, because I'm like, hey, it's less running. But then I was like, oh, yeah, but then there's that swimming. And I live in Chicago. And so the swim portion was in Lake Michigan. And that was interesting. But during that whole process was probably a couple of years from starting running, going through the triathlon. I've shared this on the show before. I put on about 10 pounds. Now, I think part of that was menopause. And I talked about this in the menopause episode. Part of that was menopause. Part of that, I think, was just getting older and also not doing the strength training. Like that trifecta, I think, really kind of put me behind the 8 ball, not to mention the fact that I had no idea what I was doing with refueling. That was a big problem for me because the running made me hungry. Strength training doesn't make me hungry. So could you talk about that a little bit? I'm sure you work with your clients on finding the best. I mean, yes, the enjoyment factor is, I think, the most important thing, because if you enjoy it, you won't think of it as exercise. And like, I do ballet and karate. I love it so much. It's certainly not exercise focused. I mean, it's very intense. They're hard workouts, but I love every minute of it. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the E in exercise definitely needs to stand for enjoyment. You always want to do an exercise that you enjoy. So, I just think that ballet and, your karate, like you say, you really enjoy it. Now, I was talking to somebody who raised a really interesting question. And the question was, if exercise had nothing to do with your body weight, how much would you change your current exercise program? And I thought that's a really interesting question. And in your case, I don't think you would change a blessed thing.
Right.
Other people would go, man, I wouldn't exercise. So you always want to start an exercise program that you enjoy and that works for your body. Some people are really good at lifting weights. And when people live in a larger body, weightlifting, strength training is an excellent place to start because you get stronger and you can do a really good job with lifting weights. And once you're stronger, then you can probably walk longer or jog longer. So I'm a big advocate, as you are, of strength training. And it's really great in terms of diabetes management and weight management. And in terms of appetite, it's interesting how you said that you get hungry after you run, but not after you lift weights. I'm kind of the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, when their body temperature is elevated, that sort of kills their appetite. So after I run, I'm sweaty and I'm not that hungry. But after I lift weights, I'm ravenous. So the message here, each person's body is very different. And if you talk to 10 people, they'll give you 10 different responses as to how their appetite responds to different exercises. But if your body is hungry, all it's saying is, I burned off what you gave me. May I please have some more fuel? And you want to say, of course. If you were babysitting and the little kid was crying because he was hungry, if you didn't feed that kid, it would be called child abuse. So if you're hungry because you just did a big workout, to not eat is abusive, to say nothing of not refueling your body. So again, it goes back to food is fuel. People who exercise get hungry. Hunger is simply a request for food. You're either fueling up or refueling, and hopefully you're eating during the active part of your day. You're planning your meals to support your workout. So if you exercise in the morning, part of your breakfast beforehand, part of it afterwards, but you probably want an early lunch. You have an early lunch, you need a second lunch in the afternoon to ruin your appetite so you're not as hungry at nighttime. If you exercise at the end of the day, what you eat at breakfast and lunch and second lunch fuels you up for your after-work workout. And there's just a rhythm to it. So you want to find a pattern that works for your exercise program, your lifestyle, as well as for your taste buds. Because food indeed should be one of life's pleasures.
Absolutely. So I know you work a lot with your clients on weight loss maintenance, and you mentioned the eating disorders also. A lot of that goes hand in hand. But you probably also work with clients on gaining weight, and that can be just as difficult for certain people as losing weight. So do you want to speak to that a little bit? How do you approach that with clients about how they can gain weight safely and effectively?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. The people that want to gain weight are just as frustrated as those who want to lose weight. And, we probably all know people that are just pencil thin and they eat a ton. And one of the reasons why they might have trouble gaining weight is that people that are really lean and thinner than they like, generally they're very fidgety and they're very animated. They never sit still. And that all burns off a lot of calories. So a good fidgeter can burn off an extra 300, 700 calories. So for people who want to gain weight, I sort of suggest, well, why don't you just mellow out? But that's not in their genetics. I mean, this is something that you're born with at birth. Like some babies, they just sit and coo, and other babies are crawling all over the place. So there's a genetic component to it. But when people want to gain weight, the easiest way is to add liquid calories. That means drinking more milk. It means drinking more juice. I have a high school kid who over the summer, not this summer, but a couple of summers ago, he just carried around one of those half-gallon bottles of cranapple juice. And instead of drinking water, he drank juice, his cranapple juice. In the bottle contained about 1,000 calories. And over the course of the summer, he gained 13 pounds. The juice is carbohydrate that fuels your muscles. He was very active in sport. It's also 99% water. So you don't need to drink water to get the fluid that you need. And so it kept him well hydrated. And if you have different colors of juices, like you have red cranberry juice, you've got orange juice, yellow pineapple juice, blue blueberry juice, there are green juices. All of these different colors have different health protective properties. So in our culture today, juice is too much sugar.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for active people, that sugar, that carbohydrate is what fuels their muscles and it helps them be a better athlete. The body of a fit person can take up sugar far differently, far better than the body of an unfit person. So the don't drink juice message is generally targeted toward couch potatoes or people that are not very active. Whereas an athletic person, their muscles are little Pac-Men just going, where's the sugar? So rather than just having sugar, to have sugar in the form of juices and fruits can be a welcome addition to a sports diet. So for weight gain, you know what you're eating now. You have to figure out how to add an extra 300, 500, 700 calories a day. And if you add a glass of milk to each meal, that can be 300, 400 calories right there. And you add a couple of glasses of juice instead of drinking from your water bottle, and you've added the calories effortlessly.
Interesting. Thank you. I'm just wondering if you have seen much with your clients or in the research or in the media about how the pandemic has impacted weight and exercise habits. We've heard about the COVID-19, which is like the freshman 15. In my household, my husband lost like 15 pounds. My daughter came home from college. She lost a significant amount of weight just by having a different daily routine. So could you share some insights on what you're seeing in your world as far as how the pandemic may have impacted weight and exercise?
Yeah, in my world, people have had more time to exercise, to cook, and for self-care. And I've seen a lot of weight loss. And sometimes the weight loss has been a little bit too much. Because if you're anxious, certainly COVID just, breeds anxiety. And if people are stuck at home, people with eating disorders have had a really hard time. They don't have to show up for meals because they're all by themselves. So there's been a lot of struggle with very restrictive eating and over-exercising. Then anxiety also for some people just triggers, I need to take care of myself with some ice cream or cookies. So it's gone one way or the other. And I'd say that there's a whole bunch of people that have lost weight. There's a whole bunch of people that have gained weight. And some of the weight loss has been healthy, and some of it has been a little bit carried away. But what's most important is that people are alive. And I just really recommend that people recognize that food impacts health. And at a time of a pandemic, you do want to take good care of your body and good self-care.
Yes, I think the whole health and nutrition environment, has shifted as far as more people seeing the importance of it, like today, I think sometimes we think of health and nutrition as sort of the long view, but with the pandemic, it's more like, okay, this matters today. And I think for a lot of people, our routines were just completely changed overnight, or the routine we had was gone. And I think it took some people a while to create the new routine. And I think those who were able to, maybe they weren't going to the gym, but they're walking outside, those who were able to kind of figure out, okay, in this new normal, I hate that phrase, but, in this new situation, how can I modify my exercise routine? And I have heard some insights that say, a lot of people who have had more time to exercise or found a way to change up their routine to include more exercise. And you mentioned cooking at home. I've heard that some people are really hoping that those habits will continue post-pandemic. And I think that is good news.
Oh, I would hope so. There's a park right near my house, and the park has been filled with kids and parents. A dad down on his hands and knees with his little daughter on his back playing Giddy Up, Daddy. And pre-pandemic, we never saw that. There's all sorts of silver linings. And I see a lot of people out walking, biking. And so for those that are able to get out and enjoy an active lifestyle, I think they've taken advantage of it.
Absolutely. So what are some of the common questions and myths that you hear that you'd really like to take this opportunity and dispel for our listeners?
Common myths. Carbs are fattening? No. Grains, fruits, vegetables are a very important part of a healthy diet. So it's excess calories that are fattening, particularly excess calories at the end of the day. So carbs are not fattening. Just change that word carbohydrate, which is so tainted, change it to grains, fruits, and vegetables. And it's very healthy food choices.
That's very interesting because I did notice that you weren't saying carbs. You were saying grains, fruits, and vegetables. And that was purposeful. I hear that now.
Oh, very purposeful. That word carbohydrate is just way too tainted. I mean, it's carbs, carby foods. I mean, it just paints nothing but negative images. So grains, fruits, and vegetables should be the foundation of a healthy sports diet. That some protein is good, but extra protein does not build extra big muscles. Extra strength training does, weightlifting, resistance exercise. That's what builds muscles. And you need adequate protein to build muscle mass, but extra protein does not build extra muscle.
Speaking of adequate protein, because I know at the beginning of the podcast, you said, some people are getting too much protein, partly because they're afraid of carbs, and they think that shift will be helpful. So in trying to get adequate protein, I've talked about protein a lot on the podcast, and like trying to distribute it more evenly throughout the day, it sounds like what you're saying with regard to flipping that pattern of getting, the bigger dinner where most people are getting most of their protein, is just having the bigger breakfast and the bigger lunch is probably shifting some of the protein to those day parts, if you will, and not necessarily needing more protein, but shifting that. Is that what you're recommending?
Yeah, precisely. And it's very important to think about protein pacing. A dose of protein is used for building muscle for about 4 hours. So if you have a big slab of steak at dinner or a big chunk of chicken or whatever, and just have oatmeal for breakfast and a sandwich for lunch and pretzels for a snack, you've gone 24 hours without protein. That's a big protein desert. Whereas really you want to have some protein every 4 hours. So something at breakfast, lunch, second lunch, dinner. And this is particularly important as people get older. Their protein needs actually increase. And if you want to prevent frailty, you want to make sure that you just don't have toast for breakfast, but you put a couple of eggs on it. You just don't have, vegetable soup for lunch. You make sure that there's, a tuna sandwich along with it. So I always look for protein carb combinations at each meal. And when I work with clients one-on-one, I estimate their protein needs. They're based on your body weight. And for most people, somewhere between, depending on your body size, 15 to 25 grams of protein per meal is what their body needs. A piece of chicken the size of a deck of cards. Now, at nighttime, people eat like 3 decks of cards worth of chicken. Let's just divide that out and get it more evenly distributed. Not only is it optimal in terms of preserving muscle mass, but also it's very satiating and it stays with you so that you don't get as munchy and looking for something to eat.
Right. And we talked about the physiology of hunger and hunger post-exercise. And this is something that I brought up in the menopause episode, is that thankfully I really don't get very hungry. So that has been beneficial for me in trying to maintain a healthy weight. And then I mentioned also earlier that the strength training really, really works well for me in that respect. But what do you say to people like me who I don't get real hungry? I'm trying to listen to my hunger, but that's not causing me to munch a lot and overeat, but clearly still getting too many calories when you see the weight gain. And we can blame it all on menopause, but the diet is the factor there. So what do you say to clients who just, I don't think I have a hunger issue. What could I do?
Yeah, what I look at is the hunger spectrum. On one end of the spectrum is a place called starved, stomach growling, starved. Then on the other end is a place called stuffed, like Thanksgiving stuffed. And then in the middle is a place called content. So if starved is 1, stuffed is 10, content is 5. I look at 3. 3 is cold, tired, droopy, moody, bored. Oh, I'm just eating this pretzels because I'm bored. Unable to focus, easily irritated. And many times people think that hunger is stomach growling, and that's too hungry. I mean, that's abusive. Don't go there. But cold, tired, droopy, moody, bored, unable to focus, easily irritated, that's hunger. And once I explain to my clients that my definition of hunger is far different than their definition of hunger, they go, oh, I guess I'm hungry all the time. Oh, that's where I live, cold, tired, droopy, moody. So sometimes people, they just need to be taught that hunger isn't stomach growling, but there are other body signals and just sort of reconnecting with them. So I'd say if you don't feel hunger, what do you feel? Tired, droopy, moody?
Irritable?
Irritable? Yeah, I know.
Anxious?
I can just look at my husband and tell when he's hungry. Like, don't talk to me until you've eaten something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that is very helpful. And I did do some hunger exploration. And as I did a little short 10-minute outro on the menopause episode, if people want to hear more about my menopause story. But what I realized, well, first of all, I thought, well, I don't get hungry. That's not an issue. But when I worked with a dietitian, Jennifer Neely, she wanted me to do the hunger scale. And I was like, okay, I'm at the point where I'll try anything. That's why I hired her to kind of help me, am I missing something here? It's just not all adding up for me. And so it was very interesting to work with the hunger scale. I don't know that I've mastered, I love the words that you used for when you're at a 3, because I don't think I quite have figured out all of my signs and symptoms for when I'm at a 3. But yeah, I was completely relying on stomach hunger. And, it's something that I've heard of and I, hear people talking about. But for me to go through that exploration, I learned a lot. So I do encourage people to think about that if they're struggling with hunger, whether it's I'm not hungry or I'm hungry all the time, is to really kind of write the number down before you eat and after you eat and try to think about, am I moody? Am I tired? What other physical symptoms or mental symptoms am I having besides the stomach growling?
Yeah, and I ask my clients a lot, how do you know when to eat? And they go, by the clock.
Yeah.
How do you know when to stop eating? When the food is gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's get a little bit more intuitive here.
Right.
And, just like I say, to connect. But in our society, people have really disconnected eating and hunger. I mean, so many people just eat by the clock and not by their body. They just have stopped listening to their body. But so it takes a while to reconnect. But the goal is to eat like a kid. Kids eat when they're hungry. They stop when they're content. They weigh what they weigh. They never run out of energy. They eat when they're hungry. They stop when they're content. If they've had, half of a cookie and don't want more, they just give the other half of the cookie to mom. And mom stares at that cookie and says, well, I'm not even hungry, but I'll eat it anyway. Last chance to have a cookie because I'm back on my diet afterwards.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a process to reconnect to all of those signals.
Yeah. And you mentioned listening to your body, which I think is kind of a theme for this episode. Listening to your body with regard to hunger, with regard to fueling and refueling, and also the types of exercise that you might enjoy more and you're seeing the kind of results that you want. What else would you like to share with regard to listening to our body? Any other takeaways, pearls of wisdom that you can share with us?
Yeah, you want to listen to your body. And if your body is tired, fatigued, doesn't want to go to the gym, don't make it. I mean, rest is an important part of a training program. Some people just, they get into a rhythm and like every day they get up bright and early and they go to the gym or they do their workout. And the bad things happen when you exercise and the good things happen when you rest. So rest is a very important part of a training program. And people say, oh, I shouldn't take a day off. It's like, no. Your training today is to rest your muscles. You're supposed to do that because the muscles need time to heal. And when you train, you get these little tiny injuries that need time to heal. And your muscles also need time to refuel. So if you're working out every single day, you just grind yourself down and get exhausted and probably get injured too. So, you want a training program where you have, a harder day, an easier day, a longer day, a day off, and just to vary the workouts so that you get varied results from the workouts. Like some days is the strength training and some days is the cardio. But knowing that the goal is not to work out every single day and pound yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need variety of exercise just like we need variety in the diet. And I'm so glad you brought up rest because I think it gets glossed over. And I do think that there's two ends of the spectrum. There are people who, they're trying to get into a routine and get sort of on a roll. And then there's people who think they need to exercise every day, and taking one day off is like, either it might throw them off their routine or, well, I don't need to rest. I'm just going to exercise every day. I know for me, getting older and really being fearful of injuries because I've had a few, I'm much more likely to listen to my body and rest or, modify something. And I'm the type of person I push myself, but when it comes to exercise, I don't. Because if you get injured, then, well, you're out for a while and then it's
not worth it.
It's so frustrating. And
yeah, but the people that I worry about are those who are so afraid if they don't go for their 5-mile walk every day that they'll fall off track. And it's like, no, if you enjoy your exercise program, you will do it.
Yep.
So if you are making yourself do something to stay on track, I invite you to step back and just kind of listen. Like, what is my intention with this exercise? Mm-hmm. If it's to burn off calories, oh, I'm fat, I need to go walk 5 miles and burn off calories. That's punishment.
Yeah.
And you can lose weight without exercise. You just eat a little bit less. Mm-hmm. People in the hospital, they aren't exercising. They lose weight because they're in an energy deficit. Mm-hmm. And so people need not exercise to lose weight. I totally separate the two. But I want them to exercise for health, fitness, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, strong bones, staying out of the nursing home, social.
Stress management, social, yeah.
You do want to exercise, but you have to make sure it's for the right reason. And if you're fueling appropriately and enjoying your exercise, you don't have to worry about falling off track because it's not a punishment. It's one of life's pleasures.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I love the concept of separating your activity, your exercise, and your weight. And you mentioned that earlier. I love that question. And you said somebody had posed the question to you. Like, if weight was not connected to your exercise, what would your exercise plan look like? I love that. I think it's a great thought-provoking question.
Yeah, it is a very thought-provoking question. And it was actually posed to a group of compulsive exercisers.
Wow.
Who were just like, no, got to exercise every day. Nope, have to run 10 miles every day. Got to burn off the calories. I don't deserve to eat if I can't exercise. It's like,
Yeah, that's such a horrible mindset to be in.
Yeah, it is.
That's sad. Well, thank you for sharing all of this information. I would love for you to talk a little bit about your book and what people can find in the book and where they can find it, and also where they can follow you online.
Sounds good. Yes, I'm the proud author of Nancy Clark's Sports Nutrition Guidebook. It's a book that has been popular with active people of all ages. It's not just for athletes. I get emails from moms saying, my teenage son spent the weekend reading your book. Shock. I get emails from, little old ladies living by themselves saying, oh, this is wonderful. The recipes are really designed for people that don't like to cook a lot, and they're so simple. So the book has a section on day-to-day eating on the run, like how do you manage the American food supply? It has a section on sports nutrition, fueling up, fueling during, refueling afterwards, all these different sports supplements that are around. Has a section on weight and how to lose weight, have energy to exercise, chapter on body image, and on dieting gone awry. So it's got a very strong weight section. And then it's got recipes, quick, easy, nothing too weird, family-friendly food. And many of the recipes have been contributed by other dietitians. So they're quick, easy, healthy, and yummy. So that's my sports nutrition guidebook. It's on Amazon.com. It's on my website. For more information, my website is NancyClarkRD.com. So that's NancyClarkRD, as in registered dietitian.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can follow me on Twitter, which is NClarkRD.
Mm-hmm.
And Facebook is Nancy Clark RD. So I'd be glad to have people following.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And I will have links to all of that, including information about your book and your website and your social handles on my show notes at soundbitesrd.com. And is there anything else you wanted to share with us as we wrap up?
Just that when people eat well, they feel better about themselves. And it is possible to eat well with, yummy food that is healthy and is one of life's pleasures.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And for everybody listening, as always, enjoy your food with health in mind. Till next time.
For more information, visit soundbitesrd.com. Music by Dave Burke, produced by Jag in Detroit Podcasts.